All right, if you're a multi-cloud architect, I'm willing to bet your leadership is talking about one thing and one thing only right now: generative AI, right? They see all this incredible potential, but you see the risk. You're the one who's actually on the hook to make this thing work without blowing up the budget or, leaking the company's secrets. So how do you build the fortress to make it all safe? Let's dive in. Okay, so picture this. Your C-suite is absolutely buzzing. They want an internal AI assistant for everyone. And of course, they wanted it yesterday. The potential upside is it's huge. But the downside is just as big, maybe even bigger. So how do you actually deliver that power without accidentally leaking your company's most sensitive IP or waking up one morning to a totally shocking six-figure cloud bill? That's the knife edge we're talking about today. And this really just captures that whole balancing act, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the incredible promise, boosting productivity through the roof, getting instant insights from your company's data. But then on the other side, you've got the peril, and it is very real. Leaking sensitive data, costs that just spiral out of control. So our job as architects is to build the bridge that gets us to the promise while also building a massive firewall to keep the peril at bay. So let's get really specific about this mission, okay? We are not talking about some small pilot project for one department. No, we're talking about rolling out a seriously powerful AI assistant to thousands of employees, your entire company. That means every single prompt, every query, every single response, it all has to be governed. The scale of this thing alone totally changes the game. It's not just a deployment anymore, it's a major architectural challenge. All right, so where do you even start with something that big? Well, the answer isn't some dusty policy document that nobody ever reads. No way. We're talking about building guardrails directly into the architecture. We're going to build a foundation based on 4 super critical pillars of governance. Pillar number 1, and honestly, this is probably the most important one: data privacy. You absolutely need programmatic control over what data is flowing into the model. I'm talking about a system that can automatically spot and block things like personally identifiable information, sensitive financial data, or even secret project code names before they even get close to the LLM. Okay, so that covers what goes in. Now let's talk about the other side of the coin, what comes out. This is all about model choice and safety. Are you going to use a general foundation model or something you fine-tuned? But even more important is putting safety filters on the output. You have to make sure the AI's responses are actually helpful, they're accurate, and they line up with your company's policies. You've got to stop any harmful, biased, or just plain weird off-brand stuff from ever reaching a user. Next up, pillar 3, logging and auditability. And this one is built on a really simple idea. You can't govern what you can't see. It's that simple. You need a single, centralized, unchangeable log of every single prompt and response. And this isn't just for some compliance checkbox. It's crucial for security, for debugging when things go wrong, and for actually understanding how people are using the tool. And finally, of course, we have to talk about the money. Pillar number 4 is all about cost governance. Look, if this internal assistant gets popular, and you hope it does, it could generate millions, even billions of API calls, and those costs can just explode. So your architecture has to include financial controls. I'm talking about things like rate limiting, setting quotas for different users or departments, and having budget alerts in place. It's the only way to keep this thing from becoming a financial black hole. Okay, so we've just laid out our 4 pillars. That's the what. Now let's get to the fun part, the how. How do we actually build this governance layer using services you probably already use on AWS? This is where the architecture really starts to take shape. The absolute core of this entire strategy is a centralized API gateway. Seriously, this is the key. Think of it like a single, super smart front door for every single GenAI request in your company. No user gets to talk to an LLM directly. No application does either. Everything, and I mean everything, has to go through this one single point of control. So let's follow a single request from beginning to end, and you'll see how this works. A user types in a prompt, but wait, it doesn't go straight to the model. First, our API gateway grabs it. It then kicks off a pre-processing step that scrubs out any sensitive data. Only after it's been cleaned up does the prompt move on. Then the model generates a response, but before it gets back to the user, it gets intercepted again. This time, a post-processing step checks it for safety, redacts anything inappropriate, and only then does the final, audited, safe-to-view response get delivered. See, every single request gets wrapped in this bubble of governance. So when you break it down, your toolkit for this is actually pretty simple. It's really 3 main things. First, you've got your API gateway. That's your traffic cop, handling all the routing and the cost control throttling. Second, you have your pre- and post-processing logic. This is usually done with something like AWS Lambda, and that's what does all the hard work of filtering the data. And third, you use AWS IAM for fine-grained access control, making sure only the right people and apps are allowed to even use the system at all. All right, let's connect all the dots now. Remember those big risks we started with? Let's map them to the solutions we just built. You're worried about data leakage? Bam, that's what your pre-processing logic is for. Concerned about unsafe or weird outputs? That's handled by your safety filters and post-processing. Freaking out about runaway costs? That's what the API gateway throttles are for. And what about having no audit trail? Solved by your centralized logging. It's a system. Every risk has a specific architectural answer. Okay, so you've designed this beautiful architecture. You're feeling good. But before you even think about going live, there are 5 questions you have to be able to answer. Just think of this as your final go-no-go checklist before production. And these are absolutely non-negotiable. You need a rock-solid answer for every single one. Number 1, what data specifically is allowed to be sent to the model? Number 2, which models precisely are on the approved list? 3, what are the exact safety filters you're going to apply to the output? 4, how and where exactly are you logging every prompt and response? And 5, what are your hard and fast cost controls, the throttles, the quotas, the budgets? You've got to have these answers down cold. So the last thing I'll leave you with is a direct question. As you're planning your company's big GenAI project, just look at your architecture, look at your plan, and ask yourself this. Can I confidently answer all 5 of those questions? If the answer is yes, well then you're not just deploying another tool. You're building a secure, scalable, and truly sustainable new capability for your entire company. And that is a game changer.